sign on to do a contact with him. He goes down the list. I was wondering if you ever contacted that fellow. Kilo Charlie 5 Hotel Zulu Oscar.
No, I can't. What was it called again? NY4?
Yeah, it's real easy. It's NY4PD, as in police department. He used to be an NYPD police officer, and but now he's moved to California. Oh man, it's something Bay, California is his town, but he's in, I believe it's in Southern California now.
No, I can't say I have, but I've made a ton of contacts in California. In fact, actually, I got to meet a guy that I contacted in California. He lives on the side of a hill. He's got a 200-foot tower up there. Boy, has he got a stacked set of antennas on it, too. And I had my best friend and I took a trip out there, and we went to Kalinga, California, on a job for him, and rode our Harleys around and run into him, and it was the same guy I talked on the radio one day too on the 80 meter, and introduced myself, and he said, well, I'll be dipped. He said, you are a Texan, aren't you?
You know what, BJ, I totally misspoke. He is not in California. He is in Florida. I just looked him up, Palm Bay, Florida. And I don't know why, but he likes to aim his antennas west because he's trying to get, I guess, contiguous United States contacts or something. But you can watch him. He's got a webcam, and I did this, and I got on his YouTube channel, and you can watch him while he's doing the contacts each night. Kilo Charlie 5 Hotel Zulu Oscar.
Yeah, I might look him up, but you know what they say about police officers that came out of New York? They always have that Yankee accent, Roger?
Well, nobody's perfect, BJ. Kilo Charlie 5 Hotel Zulu Oscar. Now, I myself, I have no accent at all, and I know this because everybody around North Texas, it's family and friends, they tell me I've got a perfect voice for radio because I have no access. So, what do you think about that, y'all? Kilo Charlie 5 Hotel Zulu Oscar.
Y'all? You didn't say it right. Y'all? Yeah. I have one. My daughter told me I'd sound great as a dispatcher for DPS. Said that, and you got a loud voice. Even though you're at low tone, you still got a good forward voice. She said, you ever thought about being a country and western singer? And I told her, I said, yeah, I did, but I couldn't get, all of the syllables out.
Well, I tell you what, it's not as easy as you might think. I had a fellow I was working for when I was in Denver about 15 years ago, and he had a brother that was in the business as a songwriter. He was trying to be a songwriter, and he'd worked on that like 2 or 3 years, and he finally got one of his songs on retainer. I can't remember which artist signed it on retainer, but I don't know if they ever aired it or anything.
Well, mine did. My cousin went in partnership with Dan Seals, and it was called England Dan and John Ford Coley. They made a ton of records. John is my cousin by marriage, and I went out to California on a run with my friend, and she's remarried now, and she married the deputy fire chief of San Diego, and he took us on a run in one of the big engines, and I'm like, woo, man, I'm having fun now.
Copy that. Yeah, I think you were telling me about the, was that a fire engine? I thought you were telling me about that.
Yeah, it was a big old fire engine. Horse trailers are long enough. This thing was longer than my horse trailers. I think when they turned the corner, it took the back end almost 3 blocks before it caught up with them.
Well, this probably isn't going to impress a fellow like you with the big antenna array that would probably make W1AW upset or really envious. But I got my MCOM antenna I was talking about earlier on the net back up in the attic where it belongs. That's why I can't build something like you're building, because I am in an HOA environment, and my antennas, BJ, have to pretend like they're not there. This antenna I'm talking to you on is pretending like it's an ivy plant right now. Kilo Charlie 5 Hotel Zulu Oscar.
Well, I'll tell you what, if Greg Abbott signs that bill into order, HOA has no restrictions on what you do at your house except keep it cleaned up.
Well, that's the problem. I need to get a house. I'm in condominiums. I'm actually renting one from a family friend, so it's not even a house. It's a pretty bad situation for radio. But I make do. You know, you just have to be secret agent stealthy radio.
You mean like a James Bond Jr.? Well, you need to move out in the country so you'll have plenty of land and plenty of room. You could put an antenna up so big you'd blow everybody's mind.
Oh, you better believe it. I need to do that in the worst way, but maybe something like that will happen here in a year or two. We'll have to see. Kilo Charlie 5 Hotel Zulu Oscar. It's probably about time for the net, so I'm going to go on and sign with you, sir, and say 73 and listen to your last transmission.
All right, Roberto. I'm going to clear off here because it's about 2 minutes until it's 9 o'clock. AF5TX. And I'm going to go get me another glass of tea.
Mr. Chairman, I need to make myself very clear. If we uplink now, Skynet will be in control of your military.
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
Skynet. Everybody look out. Aliens are about to attack.
Anyone need to use the repeater before we begin the 9 p.m. Skynet? This is KF5PDS. My name is Billy, and I'll be your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. Skynet is a weekly net called every Saturday night at 9 p.m. concerning the subject of astronomy. Our purpose is to help amateurs become more familiar with the nighttime and daytime sky, astronomy, and space in general. This net is open to all amateurs interested in this topic, and we encourage your participation, comments, and suggestions for this net. Stations with priority or emergency traffic may enter the net at any time by using the pro sign, break, and your call sign. Is there any emergency or priority traffic? The directed net. Please do not transmit without direction from net control. That would be me. And stations are reminded to ID at the end of your transmissions. This weekly net operates on 146.880 megahertz with a PL tone of 110.9. Check-ins via Echolink are also possible using the W5FC-R station ID or Echolink node 37247. Tonight's topics, astronomy charts, pictures, and live audio video links are available online. Go to www.w5fc.org right now for the complete list. And remember to tell others about this popular net. All amateur operators are welcome. You need not be a member of any amateur radio club to participate. The net is 90 minutes long and is structured in several parts. General announcements, Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, where and when you can look through a telescope, National Space Society events, discussion topic of the evening, space exploration and space history, Was Up, topic or constellation of the week, space launches of the week, recent astronomical discoveries, visible satellite passages over the next couple of days, astronomical Q&A, and our 73 round. All amateurs licensed to frequency are invited to check in. So at this time, I'll turn the net over to my alternate net control, E5ICX. If you'll do the check-in honors, please.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike, Tony in Dallas.
November 5, Bravo, Bill in Irving.
Alpha Foxtrot 5 Tango X-Ray, BJ, Crandall.
Kilo Golf 5, Papa, Mike in Richardson.
K2OIC, Rice City, Texas.
Kilo Golf 5, Uniform Kilo Uniform, David, Mesquite.
Alpha Golf 5, Papa Mike, Rich in Rockwall.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Zulu Bravo Lima, Bill, Farmers Branch.
November 5, Oscar Foxtrot, Clay of Mesquite.
Kilo 5, Kilo, Tango X-Ray, Kelly in Quinlan.
5 Golf Uniform Sierra. Gus for far northeast Dallas.
This is Kilo Foxtrot 5, Juliet Hotel Alpha, Chaz, and Mesquite.
This is Kilo India 5, Gulf Romeo Hotel, Melissa in Dallas.
This is K2OIZ for Zebra. Handle here is George.
This is Kilo Golf 5 Echo India Uniform, David, St. Paul, Texas.
Kilo Golf 5, Alpha, Papa Lima, Patrick in Dallas.
Golf 5 Bravo Zulu Whiskey. Jay, no weather.
Steve, San Antonio.
Zero Mike Bravo Charlie, Shane and
Destiny. Hi, Dallas Net.
you very much, Tom. This is KF5PDS Billy, your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. And welcome to everyone. And hi, Bethany. It's so good to hear from you. Glad you could make it tonight. And glad everyone could make it to Skynet. All right, so let's go ahead and started. So let's get started with general announcements. Do we have any general announcements for this evening's net? These can be ham, astronomical, space, or of general interest to licensed hams. If so, please come now with your call sign.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike.
D5EM, Tony, good evening. What announcements do you have for us this evening?
Well, good evening, Billy. I'd like to remind everyone that this is not the last net of the night. We do have the Afterglow movie discussion tonight at 10:30, featuring a Philip K. Dick movie, A Scanner Darkly. Additionally, well, this Sunday is a fourth Sunday. That means no Racy's Net or meeting on the air. This Monday is a fourth Monday, and that means GeekNet. Now, we had more than 40 geeks on the TechNet today, and I bet we have plenty of geeky people here, too, so I'd like to encourage everyone to check into the GeekNet at 7 o'clock on Monday. We can talk about anything we like. It doesn't have to be ham radio related, and you can bring any cool news about any subject you like to geek out about. Birds you've seen, stamps you've collected, it's all welcome on the fourth Monday right here at 7 p.m. So thank you very much for listening. NT5TM.
Thanks very much, Tony. Do we have any other announcements? If so, please come now with your call sign. Hearing any, so I'll go ahead with a few announcements of my own. The AMSAT Radio Amateur Satellite Group has 2 nets available to Dallas residents on Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. Central Time. You'll need Echo Link installed and you registered. You can find the net under Groups and AMSAT. Also, a live audio link available on their website at www.amsatnet.com. This net originates in Houston, Texas. The Dallas AMSAT net, Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas, is every Wednesday at 9 p.m. on the Arlington repeater, 147.140 megahertz, with a PL tone of 110.9 and a positive offset. The DARC has several nets on Monday nights. First Monday of the month is Ham Fixin's net. If you want to come listen for recipes or have a question or anecdote about food, come share it on Ham Fixin's net. The second Monday of the month is MCOM 101, Emergency Communications. Third month, come back for a second helping of Ham Fixin's net. And as Tony mentioned, the fourth Monday of the month is GeekNet. So come share anything geeky, news of the weird, brain teasers, you name it. If it's geeky, you'll geek out on GeekNet. And there are sometimes fifth Mondays in which there will be a fifth Monday surprise net. I've done everything from playing lots of rounds of Jeopardy to doing Truth or Lies April Fools, Christmas Thunderdome, where we shared best and worst Christmas presents of the year, and I believe there was even a round-robin build-your-own short story one time. So it's always a pleasant surprise on the fifth Monday surprise net. And Saturdays is the Night of Nets with TechNet from 7 to 8 p.m., and of course at 9 p.m., Skynet. ARRL Net, National Traffic System Training Net, is every night at 6:30 p.m. Central Time, and all are welcome to check in on any or all of these nets. And as Tony mentioned, after Skynet at 10:30, we have the Afterglow Movie Net. So if we have any new listeners, the way that works is we pick a movie to watch. It's announced on the net and sent out And you'll learn more information if you'll join us about how to tap into Afterglow MovieNet. And then at some point, we all watch the movie just on our own, or sometimes have a watch party. You just never know. We'll have a Facebook Live watch party sometimes. And then discuss the movie on the air. So tonight, as Tony mentioned, we're going to be discussing A Scanner Darkly. So I'll turn the net over to E5ITX if you'll give us tonight's Afterglow. Thank you very much. Yes, join us at 10:30 for the Afterglow MovieNet. And you can keep up with all the DARC events, nets, and activities by going to the club website, w5se.org. All right, next up is Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas, and when you can look through a telescope. So if there's someone on frequency that would like to give information about the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas, please come now with your call sign.
KF5JHA.
Chaz, good evening. What information can you share with us about Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas?
Well, in short, we're not doing much in the way of group activities unless it is virtual. So we actually had a virtual meeting last night on Zoom. The highest number I saw was 63 people that were on the Zoom session. It was great. We had a featured speaker, Adam Block, a really famous astrophotographer and also professional astronomer. He does astrophotography on the side, but his images are great. Now, some people say, I'd never get something like that. Well, he didn't either at first, but it's taken him quite some time, but they were just awesome. And he showed us how he did processing of several of his images. Okay, on Saturday nights, before we were sheltered in place, the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas had observing sessions at different locations like Cedar Hill and Frisco and Rockwall and Garland. But right now, we're on hiatus until we out of this shelter-in-place activity that we're going through right now. But the Texas Astronomical Society will have meetings virtually on the fourth Friday of each month. So come visit us if you can. If you are not a member of the club and you wish to participate, email one of the officers, and you can find that information at texasastro.org. And I think that's all I have for now. Thank you, Billy. This is KF5JHA.
Thank you very much, Chaz. And Chaz also mentioned in the chat window that if you can go out and see the moon right now, the moon is in the Hyades cluster and apparently looks really spectacular. So if it's clear where you are, go out and take a peek and then come back and join Skynet. We'll move on to our next topic, which is National Space Society events and activities. So this time I'll call on Bill, N5BB, if you'll give us information on the National Space Society.
N5BB. Well, with all the shutdowns, there's no activities we have that are going on really, except occasional online things. So I have nothing new to report since last week. Sorry, N5BB.
Hey, Bill. I always appreciate keeping you in the loop because you never know when somebody's going to have something to announce. So thanks for letting us know. We'll just stay in that holding pattern until we hear otherwise. This is KFI-TDS, Billy, control for this session, ARC Skynet. Next up is discussion topic of the evening. So tonight I've chosen a couple of articles. One is in skyandtelescope.org, written by David Dickinson, entitled Space and Astronomy at the Time of COVID-19. It's a very relevant topic, and one with which everybody can resonate right now, as everyone's affected in some manner or fashion. And I hope everyone's that's on the net staying safe and healthy, and I'm glad you're here. So let me share with you this article. This was updated as of April 14th, so there may be different information than what's presented in this article. Let me find that. I'm having a hard time finding my starting place here. So this article, the editorial note, it was edited April 14th to add details about NASA's Curiosity rover, as well as ventilator production now being managed by South African Radio Astronomy Observatory. So the ongoing worldwide pandemic is having a significant impact on spaceflight, science, and professional and amateur astronomy. It's a different world we live in right now. The novel coronavirus pandemic has affected 185 countries, causing national and state agencies worldwide to take drastic measures to attempt to contain the spread. These measures, including physical distancing and quarantine, are unavoidably impacting space and astronomy. Yet, even in the face of temporary closures, delays, and even bankruptcy, some of this work continues. European Space Agency's one of the first casualties of pandemic was the European Space Agency's Rosalind Franklin Mars rover. The rover had already experienced significant problems with its parachute system. The pandemic only exacerbated the delay, and the mission has now been postponed to the next launch window in 2022. As of this writing, NASA's newly christened Perseverance Mars rover is still on track for a July 2020 launch. The United Arab Emirates Agency states that their Mars Hope orbiter mission is also still on track. The China National Space Administration hasn't yet clarified if its rover orbiter mission will make the trek to Mars this year. One only has to look at the cautionary tale of the Galileo mission to realize the perils of such mission delays. After the Challenger disaster, Galileo's mission to Jupiter changed significantly, causing years of delays and modifications to the spacecraft. These changes ultimately led the main antenna, which should have sent data back to Earth, to malfunction. The joint European-Japanese Bepi Colombo mission successfully completed its Earth flyby on Friday, April 10th, en route to Mercury. To make that happen, a good number of European Space Agency controllers were either working remotely or under physical distancing constraints at the control center in Darmstadt, Germany. Space launch cadence worldwide has slowed down during the pandemic, with many missions slipping into a to-be-determined status. However, SpaceX continues to add its controversial Starlink constellation, with another launch of 60 satellites planned for April 16th. OneWeb, another startup in the satellite mega constellation game, recently filed for bankruptcy. It cited the financial downturn in the wake of the worldwide pandemic, though the company had been struggling to come up with for its full venture before the pandemic hit. OneWeb already has 74 satellites in low Earth orbit. All NASA sites across the U.S. are either in NASA Response Framework Stage 3 or Stage 4, which means that employees are working either at home or in minimal staffing levels. Center is currently at a Stage 3 facility, and the 45th Space Wing at Patrick Air Force Base in Florida, which supports the Cape Canaveral Air Force Station, is in Health Protection Condition Charlie. Telework is in effort for NASA personnel at both facilities until further notice, says NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine in a recent press release. These measures are being taken to help slow the transmission of COVID-19 and protect our communities. The team operating Curiosity on Mars is even roving from home. After picking up needed hardware curbside, team members also had to make logistical arrangements. We're usually all in one room, sharing screens, images, and data. People are talking in small groups and to each other from across the room, Alicia Alba, who leads the team, said in a recent press release. Now they do the same job by holding several video conferences at once, while also relying on more messaging apps. Crewed spaceflight activities in the support of the International Space Station are also continuing. The Soyuz MS-16 launched from the Baikonur Cosmodrome on April 9th, carrying new crew to the International Space Station. This launch was carried out with abbreviated media activities and no press on site. Astronauts typically undergo a 2-week quarantine period prior to launch. However, the pandemic may push back the timeline for the Space Launch System and our to the Moon. The Stennis Space Center and Michaud Assembly Facility are both at Stage 4 with no personnel on site. Development of the long-awaited James Webb Space Telescope project is likewise paused, although the team managed to complete deployment tests just prior to shutdown. The James Webb Space Telescope is still set to launch in 2021. The pandemic is also having an effect on Earth-based astronomy. The recent Lunar Planetary Science Conference was suspended, and the upcoming 236th American Astronomical Society Conference on June 1st through 3rd has gone virtual. The Mauna Kea observatories in Hawaii have suspended operations as part of the governor's stay-at-home order, and the Laser Interferometer Gravitational Wave Observatory, LIGO, has also suspended its third observing run due to the pandemic. The Canary Islands Astronomical Facility off the coast of Morocco is also under lockdown. Due to the stop of all non-essential activities in Spain, the 10.4-meter Gran Telescopio Canarias is undertaking a safe shutdown of the facility, says Gianluca Lombardi of ESO. The shutdown is also affecting the whole Roque de los Muchachos observatory installations, or Muchachos observatory installations. The Stratospheric Observatory for Infrared Astronomy, or SOFIA, Airborne Observatory has also suspended operations in the wake of the pandemic. SOFIA was also zeroed out in the 2021 budget proposal. Unless that changes in Congress, which it has in previous years, the mission would have few, if any, flights left. Also feeling the effects of stay-at-home orders and physical distancing in the amateur astronomy community as well, as star parties are canceled or postponed and observing runs are cut short. If the travel halt runs into summer, a very likely scenario, eclipse expeditions planned for the June 21st annular solar eclipse over Central Africa and Southeast Asia will be canceled. As students out of school are returning to online remote learning, many in the space community are taking up online efforts for science education. Sky and Telescope has compiled a list of homeschooling activities focused on astronomy, including astronomy craft projects and several virtual initiatives from Universe Today, NASA, and others. South African-based observer Corey Schmitz has also been doing amazing live astronomy streams of the moon and more from his backyard. Finally, telescope makers are even offering their skills to address the shortage of protective gear for healthcare workers. Oregon-based amateur astronomer Robert Asimendi recently turned his talents for 3D printing telescope kits to printing parts for face shields for local hospitals. And you can see Sky and Telescope's June 2019 issue for the 3D printing telescope kit information. South African Radio Astronomy Observatory is also stepping up, managing the development and production of 10,000 ventilators by the end of June as part of the government's National Ventilator Project. It's a strange new normal. Perhaps we can all take advice from ESA Mars 500 crew member Diego Urbina on how to stay occupied during the quarantine. Diversify tasks, organize your time, exercise well, and do kind things for those at home with you. Stay safe, and may we never take sharing the night sky together for granted again. Some bonus information. So that was the article about astronomy in the time of COVID-19. I just wanted to present a bonus article, and I won't take up too much more time because I know we have a lot to present on tonight's net. But Scott Kelly submitted an article March 21st of this year to the New York Times about how he spent a year in space, and he has tips on isolation to share. So Scott Kelly did spend a year in space on the International Space Station. So as someone who knows self-isolation quite well, he does have some very good tips. So I'll present these in a shortened form. He says, being stuck at home can be challenging. When I lived on the space station for nearly a year, it wasn't easy. When I went to sleep, I was at work. When I woke up, I was still at work. Flying in space is probably the only job you absolutely cannot quit. But I learned some things during my time up there that I'd like to share because they are about to come handy again as we all confine ourselves at home to help stop the spread of the coronavirus. Here are a few tips on living in isolation from someone who's been there. Number one, follow a schedule. On the space station, I scheduled tightly from the moment I woke up to the moment I went to sleep. You'll find maintaining a plan will help you and your family a different work and home life environment. When I returned to Earth, I missed the structure it provided and found it hard to live without. But pace yourself. When you're living and working in the same place for days on end, work can have over everything if you let it. Living in space, I deliberately paced myself because I knew I was in it for the long haul, just like we all are today. Take time for fun activities. He met up with crewmates for movie nights, complete with snacks, and binge-watched all of Game of Thrones twice. Don't forget to include or schedule a consistent bedtime. NASA scientists closely not sleep when we're in space, and they have found that quality sleep relates to cognition, mood, and interpersonal relations, all essential to getting through a mission in space or a quarantine at home. One of the things I most living in space was being able to go outside and experience nature. After being confined to a small space for months, I actually started to crave nature, the color green, the smell of fresh dirt, and the feel of warm sun on my face. Flower experiment became more important to me than I could ever have imagined. My colleagues liked to play a recording of earth sounds like birds and rustling trees and even mosquitoes over and over. It brought me back to Earth. For an astronaut, going outside is a dangerous undertaking that requires days of preparation, so I appreciate that in our current predicament, I can step outside anytime I want for a walk or a hike, no spacesuit needed. Research has shown that spending time in nature is beneficial for our mental and physical health, as is exercise. You don't need to work out 2.5 hours a day as astronauts on the space station do, but getting moving once a day should be part of your quarantine schedule. Just stay at least 6 feet away from others. People were surprised to learn that I brought books with me to space. The quiet and absorption you can find in a physical book is priceless. Many small bookstores are currently offering curbside pickup or home delivery service, which means you can support a local business while also cultivating some unplugged time. You can also practice an instrument, try a craft, or make some art. Astronauts take time for all these while in space. Remember Canadian astronaut Chris Hadfield's famous cover of David Bowie's Space Oddity? NASA has been studying the effects of isolation on humans for decades, and one surprising finding they have made is the value of keeping a journal. Even if you don't wind up writing a book based on your journal like I did, writing about your days will help you put perspective and let you look back later on what this unique time in history has meant. Even with all the responsibilities of serving as a commander of a space station, I never miss the chance to have a video conference with family and friends. Scientists have found that isolation is damaging not only to our mental health, but to our physical health as well, especially our immune systems. Technology makes it easier than ever to keep in touch, so it's worth making time to connect with someone every day, and it might actually help you fight off viruses. I found that most problems aren't rocket science, but when they are rocket science, you should listen to a rocket scientist. Living in space taught me a lot about the importance of trusting the advice of people who knew more than I did about their subjects, whether it was science, engineering, medicine, or the design of the incredibly complex space station that was keeping me alive. Especially in a challenging moment like the one we're living through now, we have to seek out knowledge from those who know the most about it and listen to them. Social media and other poorly vetted sources can be transmitters of information just as handshakes transmit viruses. So we have to make a point of seeking out reputable sources of facts like the World Health Organization and the Johns Hopkins Coronavirus Resource Center. Seen from space, the Earth has no borders. The spread of coronavirus is showing us that what we share is much more powerful than what keeps it apart, for better or for worse. All people are inescapably interconnected, and the more we can come together to solve our problems, the better off we will all be. One of the side effects of seeing Earth from the perspective of space, at least for me, is feeling more compassion for others. As helpless as we may feel stuck inside our homes, there's always things that we can do. I've seen people reading to children via video conference, donating their time and dollars to charities online, and running errands for elderly or immunocompromised neighbors. The benefits for the volunteer are just as great as for those who help. I've seen humans work together to prevail over some of the toughest challenges imaginable, and I know we can prevail if we all do our part and work together as a team. Oh, and wash your hands often. So Scott Kelly is a retired NASA astronaut who spent nearly a year on the International Space Station. So the New York Times opinion section, you can follow them on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. So this is KFI-VDS, your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. Next up is space exploration and space history. So tonight I will over to Brenda, WB5 Ozell. First.
Thank you, Billy. This is WB5OZL. First, space exploration news. Skywatchers had high hopes that a comet called Atlas would light up the night sky this spring, with forecasts suggesting it could become bright enough to see with the unaided eye. Instead, the icy object crumbled to pieces, but it's still putting on a spectacular show for scientists. Yi Kwanzi, an astronomer at the University of Maryland, suggested sometime with NASA's Hubble Space Telescope, he snagged some time with Hubble to take a look at Comet Atlas on Monday, April 20th, and caught a stunning image of its fragments that he shared on Twitter as a preview of his research. Space-related birthdays: April 23rd, 1858, Max Planck was born, and April 24th, 1890, the Hubble Space Telescope was born or launched. So happy 30th birthday, Hubble. And if you go to nasa.gov, there's a link to find out what Hubble saw on your birthday. I did it. It's fun. This week in space history, the great debate about the size of the universe took place 100 years ago this week. Lick Observatory's Heber Curtis argued that the universe is composed of many spiral nebulae, galaxies like our own. Mount Wilson Observatory's Harlow Shapley contended that spiral nebulae were nearby gas clouds and there was only one galaxy in our universe. Curtis put the sun near the center of our small galaxy, and Shapley placed it far away from the center of a large universe/galaxy. Shapley turned out to be more correct regarding the size of the universe, although he grossly underestimated its size. And Curtis was right about our galaxy being just one of many in the universe. In this Hubble image, light from galaxies billions of light years away is distorted by the gravity of a cluster of closer galaxies. Let's see. In 1997, what was the date? I've lost it. It was this week. Cremated remains of 24 people launched into orbit aboard Pegasus rocket. They call it the first space funeral. Included in the passenger list were Timothy Leary and Gene Roddenberry. However, Roddenberry was the first so-called space funeral in 1992. His partial cremains went up in the shuttle Columbia and returned to Earth, so it was more of a trip than a funeral. No info on whether they used a different batch of ashes. He's due for another funeral someday, along with his wife Majel, on a future Celestis mission. April 22nd, 2010, X-37B launched. The Boeing X-37, also known as the Orbital Test Vehicle, OTV, is a reusable robotic spacecraft. It is boosted into space by a launch vehicle, then re-enters Earth's atmosphere and lands as a space plane. The X-37 is operated by the United States Space Force for orbital spaceflight missions intended to demonstrate reusable space technologies. It is a 120% scale derivative of the earlier Boeing X-40. X-37 began as a NASA project in 1999 before being transferred to the U.S. Department of Defense in 2004. Its first flight was during a drop test in 2006. X-37s have completed 5 orbital missions. The spaceplane's first mission, USA 212, was launched in April 2010 and returned to Earth in December 2010. And April 20th, 1972, Apollo 16 lands on the moon. Apollo 16 was the 10th crewed mission of the United States Apollo space program, the 5th and second to last to land on the moon, and the second to land in the lunar highlands. The second of Apollo's J missions, it was crewed by Commander John Young, lunar module pilot Charles Duke, and command module pilot Ken Mattingly. Launched from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida on April 16th, 1972, the mission lasted 11 days, 1 hour, and 51 minutes, and concluded on April 27th. The Apollo 16 command module is on display at the U.S. Space and Rocket Center in Huntsville, Alabama. That's all I got. Back to net, WB5OZL.
Thank you, Brenda. This is KF5PDS, Billy, your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. All right, next up is What's Up. So at this time, I'll turn the net over to Chaz, KF5JHA, if you'll let us know what's up.
Thank you, Billy. Good evening, everyone. This is Chaz, KF5JHA. I've been doing jokes over here on Echolink. If you haven't loaded up Echolink onto your computer, you've got to do this because, you know, we have 3 different modes that we're doing Skynet in. Of course, radio, what I'm talking on right now, Echolink, where there's actually a chat session that's going on, and Echolink is how Billy is doing Net Control Station tonight, and also there are video links YouTube, and I think Facebook also. All of those can be found at the website, w5fc.org. And we have some people from Brookhaven College, some students that are probably listening in tonight. So we call this segment of Skynet Was Up. For some reason, it's the same name as an article that I write for the Texas Astronomical Society newsletter. Okay. Last week, I started a tour of the constellations that are visible in the evening sky. I want to continue with our tour tonight. Don't forget, though, right now, if you go outside, you could see the moon in the constellation of Taurus the Bull, and it's in the middle of the face of the bull, which is called the Hyades star cluster. I was watching with my pair of binoculars. I have 20 by 80 binoculars sitting on a tripod, and I was watching some of the stars getting covered up, occulted by the moon. So kind of cool. So go out and take a look. You can do that while I'm doing my segment. You won't miss anything. All right, so last week we ended our tour of constellations with Ursa Major, which is has the Big Dipper in it, and Ursa Minor, which has the Little Dipper in it. The Big Dipper can be used to help us define many other constellations. So it's a very good place to start. See, that goes with the bear jokes I've been doing on Echolink. Now, looking high in the northern sky, you can find the Big Dipper, which is part of the constellation of Ursa Major, the Big Bear. The Big Dipper is called an asterism because it's not an entire constellation. An asterism is either part of a constellation or parts of several constellations. Right now, the Big Bear and the Big Dipper are upside down. Now, I told you last week that it's always upside down in the evening sky in the spring, and that's why it rains so much in the spring. And, well, because of all the water that's dumping out of the Big Dipper. And that happened a couple times this week. Let us look at the handle of the Big Dipper. It is curved. See, it's sort of a curve. Another name for a curve is an arc. If we follow that curve or arc, we run into the bright star called Arcturus. So arc to Arcturus. Arcturus is the brightest star in the constellation of Boötes. I know, it looks like it's spelled boots, but anyway, it's a shepherd. I think it looks more like a kite that's on its side than a shepherd. Some people think it looks like a single scoop ice cream cone. We'll find another scoop of ice cream that has fallen off of it in just a few minutes. Actually, in the picture, if you're looking at the video right now, you'll see the scoop of ice cream that's fallen off. If we continue our arc past Arcturus, we run into a star called Spica. Spica. Then we say we arc to Arcturus and we go on to spy Spica. I wonder why I'm emphasizing Spica. Spica is the brightest star in the constellation of Virgo, the Maiden, or the Virgin. The constellation in Virgo is famous to professionals and amateur astronomers alike for having lots of close-by galaxies. Our galaxy, the Milky Way, is part of a supercluster of galaxies called the Virgo supercluster. Through a telescope, you can often view 2 or 3 or even more galaxies in the same field of view. During the Messier Marathon, which we've talked about in the past on Skynet, you can get about 20% of your Messier objects in and close to this constellation of Virgo. Now, going back to Boötes, we look just below it, you can see a semicircle of stars. The Northern Crown. It's also known as Corona Borealis. The word corona comes from crown, so the atmosphere around the sun is also called a corona. The ring of material around a certain virus looks like a crown, and so now you know where the coronavirus gets its name. Borealis means north. You probably have heard of Aurora Borealis, which means the northern lights. Aurora means light, and of course, Borealis means north. Now back to our constellation of Corona Borealis. In the middle of the semicircle of stars, not the center, but in the semicircle itself, you can find the brightest star of the constellation called Gemma. It's a gemstone of the crown. Oh, and Corona Borealis could be that second scoop of ice cream that has fallen off the ice cream cone of Boötes. And Tom, I want to thank you for turning all the pictures around for me during this segment. I appreciate that. Below Corona Borealis, you can find another constellation called Hercules, just rising in the northeastern sky. At the center of the constellation is a group of 4 stars that form a keystone. When you build a stone arch, the top center stone is called a keystone. On the western side of Hercules' keystone, you can find one of the most observed Messier objects called M13. It's a wonderful globular star cluster easily found by most observers. Now, next week, I'll continue our tour of the evening sky. And this is KF5, JHA, and this is Skynet. On April 22nd, the moon was new, and that makes the current phase of the moon a waxing crescent. I hope you've gone out and taken a look at it. On April the 30th, the moon will be at its first quarter, and on May the 7th, the moon will be full. And on May the 14th, the moon will be at its third quarter. Back in the year 1986, did you see Comet Halley? If you did, or if you didn't, you can see it at the beginning of May. Well, at least small parts of the Comet Halley. When Comet Halley travels in its orbit, it leaves small bits of debris. These small bits of debris orbit the sun. In a cloud, an early part of May each year, the Earth runs through some of this debris. The particles run into the Earth's atmosphere so hard and so fast that they burn up in the Earth's atmosphere due to friction. Sort of like you rubbing your hands together. If you rub your hands together hard enough and fast enough, they get warm. Don't do it real hard because you get blisters. But that's the reason for the Eta Aquariid meteor shower. The Eta Aquariid meteor shower, not because you're rubbing your hands together, but because of these particles running in the Earth's atmosphere. The meteor shower, Eta Aquariid meteor shower, peaks on the night of May the 4th and 5th, with on average about 55 meteors per hour. In other words, about 1 per minute. Now, more meteors are usually seen in the morning sky, just the hour before morning twilight. So if you get up early on May the 5th, rather than staying up late on May the 4th, you'll see more. But wait, inside the city you might only see 12 meteors an hour because of all the light pollution. Now, hold on. Inside the city you might see 12 meteors an hour because of light pollution, but the moon is full, or very close to full, so it won't set until about 5:30 a.m. on the morning of May the 5th. And so the moon, the bright moon, also interferes with seeing the much fainter meteors. So inside the city, with almost a full moon, you might see a meteor every 10 minutes or so. The Texas state parks are now open again, but only for day use. But when they do open for overnight camping, go far, far away from the city lights to watch the meteors. If you don't watch them for the May meteor shower, there's other ones coming up soon. You might see many more meteors under the dark skies of a state park. I've already told you this, and Billy's told you this because I put it in the chat station on Echolink, that tonight, on April the 25th, the moon is traveling through the Hyades star cluster, which is the face of Taurus the Bull. This evening, you could go out and watch the moon occult or block some of the stars in the star cluster. The dark side of the moon will cover up the stars, and on the sunlit side of the moon is where the stars will reappear. This will happen until about 10:30 at the end of Skynet, when the moon sets. A telescope or a pair of binoculars will be the best way of watching this event. I've been watching it with a pair of 10 by 80 binoculars on a tripod. Now, just tomorrow night, on April the 26th, in the evening sky, you can spot the moon and Venus in the horns of Taurus the Bull. They're about the same height in the sky above the face of Taurus the Bull. Now, tomorrow would be a great time, tomorrow afternoon, if it's clear, to go out and look for Venus in the daytime sky before it gets dark. First, find the crescent moon, the thin crescent moon, in the afternoon sky. Then a little bit to the north, you'll find the planet Venus. Venus is bright enough to see in the daytime sky, so tomorrow night, or I should say tomorrow afternoon, would be a great time to do that. On May the 11th, low in the western evening sky during twilight, you might be able to spot Mercury next to the Pleiades star cluster. Again, this will make a good photo opportunity as long as it is clear. Just a few hours later, on the morning of May the 12th at around 2 a.m., that's just a few hours later from May the 11th in the evening, look for the Moon and Jupiter in conjunction with each other in the southeastern sky, and Saturn is just a bit lower from the pair. And on May 15th at 4 a.m., the Moon and Mars will be in conjunction and easily seen rising in the southeastern sky. Mars is getting closer and closer to the Earth. In October, Mars and the Earth will be at their closest they've been in the last 2 years. I'll talk more about that as we get closer to that event. And we've already mentioned that last night on April the 24th, the Texas Astronomical Society had a virtual club meeting with around 63 people. That's what I counted. And parking was not a problem. The Texas Astronomical Society will resume having face-to-face meetings and public observing sessions after all this shelter-in-place is over. Check their website, texasastro.org, for details. Now, do any of you out there in Radio Land have a question or need a fill on any of the information, or do you just have a general question about astronomy? I don't know everything, but I may know the answer to your question. Come now with your call sign if you have a question.
Whiskey 5 Golf Uniform Sierra.
Golf Uniform Sierra, go ahead.
Hi, Chaz. W5GUS here. You mentioned the moon, and it seems like I remember maybe a year or two ago, I was reading about a cavern that was discovered in the wall of a crater on the moon, and they estimate that this cavern is like a very long, like a mile long. I'm not sure how they did that, but and maybe 30, 40 feet across. And I was wondering if you've heard of that, and if there's been any developments on that, any developments or news updates on that cavern in the side of a crater on the moon. W5GUS.
Well, there's a lot of different crevices, canyons on the moon, and this new one that may have been found might be around the north or the south pole of the moon. We've been doing a lot of exploration. We've got orbiters going around the moon right now, taking photographs all the time, and we may have found that by these photographs. Now, the reason why we're looking at the north and south pole of the moon in much more detail is looking for water ice on the moon, and there seems to be evidence of that, and we may have found that crevice or canyon on the moon because of our exploration for water on the moon. That would be awesome if there was water ice on the moon. So, I'm sorry, did I answer your question?
Yeah, it did. I guess there was no updates on that. It was a cavern in the side of a crater, and I believe it was discovered by an orbiter, had some photographs of this cavern, but they think that it's maybe 30 foot wide at the mouth, and it goes underground, a cavern, for maybe a mile is what they're estimating, and they were thinking this might be the perfect place for one of the first lunar bases there. It's all it would be easier to pressurize something like that, and it would be the radiation would be better and things like that. So I guess I'll just keep looking up and see if I can see any updates on that. Thanks, Chaz. W5GUS.
We have have a solar system ambassador that's on air right now, and she may have heard something about this. Kelly, do you want to make a comment about this?
This is K5KTX, and I am sorry I don't have anything to add. I've not seen anything about this. Been looking at some other things related to really been paying attention to the Mars rover, the new rover that's going up, and so I haven't really been looking at the moon and what's going on there. So sorry, I don't have anything to add. It's K5KTX.
Oh, well, it was a shot in the dark. Because it's nighttime out there. Well, that was funny anyway. We have a crack team here, and so we'll do some looking up over the course of the next week and maybe get back to you on that answer to that question. I'll see what I can find. So, just a reminder, if you are a Brookhaven student listening or watching the Skynet tonight, remember to fill out your form and email it back to me, Chaz, at dcccd.edu, and do that within the next 48 hours. So, as the moon wanes at the end of May, so do these words: stay safe, keep well, and pray for our world. Until next time, keep looking up so you know what's up. And this is Chaz, KF5JHA, back to our net control, the wonderful, the marvelous KF5PDS. Billy, it's all yours.
Thank you, Chaz, for all wonderful news about What's Up. This is KF5PDS, your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. All right, next up is Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Month, topic of the week. So at this time, I will turn the net over. I know we're not getting constellation tonight. We're getting some star info. So at this time, I'll turn the net over to Mike, KG5P. The net is yours.
Okay, thank you, Billy. This is KG5P. Chaz did such a wonderful job with the constellations that I'd sort of like to specialize maybe in some of the stars. And what I'd like to talk about tonight is Alpha Canis Minoris, also known as Procyon. Now, I like Procyon because it's visible in the southwest sky. It's a bright star. And, of course, nobody's going to the Texas Star Party this year, but if I were going, I would use Procyon to align and calibrate my go-to mount. Okay, so what Procyon is, it's a yellow-white star of a magnitude 0.34, which means it's bright. In fact, it's the brightest star in Canis Major and the 8th brightest star in the sky. Now, Canis Major is not really much of a constellation. It consists of two stars joined together by a straight line, and if you have a better imagination than I do, maybe you can see a dog in there, but I can't. It's near, but not right next to, but adjacent to Canis Major, big dog. It does look sort of like a dog, but there's another constellation in the middle called Monoceros. So I'm not particularly interested in the constellation Canis Major. I just happen to like the alpha star Procyon. Okay, the reasons for its brightness, 0.34, is not so much its intrinsic luminosity, but its closeness to the sun. And it's about 11.4 light years away. So it's the 14th closest star system to our own. There's another one closer called Luton Star, but it's a brown dwarf, about 1 light year away. So Tom has a picture of Procyon up there he did a second ago. It's approximately a 2-degree wide field. Okay, the name of the mythology comes from the Greek, which means before the dog, not to be confused with after the dog. This refers to the fact that Procyon rises slightly before the dog star Sirius, Canis Major. Procyon is the eastern anchor of what they call the Winter Triangle with Betelgeuse, and I'm only going to say that once because I'm really superstitious. know what will happen if I say it twice. With that star and Sirius. Okay, and of course, there's a summer triangle too, which is what Vega, Altair, and what's the other one? Arcturus? I forget. I can't remember. Anyway, so the Milky Way separates Procyon from Sirius. According to this Arab myth, the two stars were once young sisters who decided one day to follow their older brother into the woods, or I guess the fields maybe, and they got lost. So when they neared a wide river in the sky, i.e. the Milky Way, the older sister, Sirius, jumped into the river and swam to the other side. Procyon was afraid of the water, stayed behind, and so was forever parted from her sister. Procyon's tears are said to add to the waters of the Nile. That causes yearly flooding of the Nile. Okay. So let's talk about properties. Procyon is actually a binary star system consisting of a white main sequence star of spectral size G5. It's very close, or F5 rather, Foxtrot 5. It's very close to the Sun's spectral class, which is G0, and it's slightly moved off the main sequence, so it's almost becoming its way on its way to becoming like a subgiant star. Okay. It does have a dwarf companion called Procyon B, and Procyon B its existence was inferred from irregularities in the proper motion of Procyon A, which was first detected in 1844. In fact, that's how they discover a lot of these extra solar planets, is because they can't image the planet, but they can see the reaction that it causes on its parent star. And Tom has an HR diagram up there, and you can see Procyon is just barely moving off the main sequence. It's a white star as opposed to a yellow star, and like I said, it's about 1.5 times the mass of the Sun. Okay. This dwarf companion, Procyon B, like I said, was discovered from the irregularities in the proper motion of Procyon A. And long before, this occurred in 1844, long before Procyon B was observed. Although B's orbit was computed as far back as 1861, it was not visually confirmed until 1896 with the 36-inch Lick observatory refractor. Okay. Procyon B is even more difficult to observe than Sirius B due to its greater apparent magnitude difference. It's at least 15,000 times fainter than Procyon A and has a smaller angular separation. The average separation of the two components is about 15 AU, which is a little bit less than the distance between Uranus and the Sun. Okay, Procyon A is 1.5 times the mass of the Sun, twice the diameter, and about 7.5 times more luminous than the Sun. Has an equatorial rotation of about 3.2 kilometers a second, and the rotational period could be as long as 33 days. It's surrounded by a hot solar-type corona, heated to about 1.6 million degrees Kelvin. Procyon A appears to be a relatively young star, about 1.7 billion years old. It's bright for its spectral class, suggesting that it's a subgiant that I mentioned earlier, and it has completely fused its core hydrogen into helium, and has begun to expand as fusion moves to the outside of the core. As it continues to expand, the star will eventually swell 80 to 150 times its current diameter and become a red giant before expelling its outer layers and much of the mass into interstellar space. This will probably happen within the next 10 to 20 million years. I don't know about you, but I think I have plans that night. Okay, Procyon B Procyon A's companion, Procyon B, is a white dwarf like Sirius B, only about 1/1700 luminosity in the sun. It's 0.62 solar masses, and therefore it's considerably less massive than Sirius B. However, its peculiarities of generate matter ensure that it is larger, with an estimated radius of about 8,600 kilometers versus about 5,800 for Sirius B. It's only about 30% larger than the Earth, with the stellar mass squeezed into a planetary volume. And Procyon B's average density is a little bit over 2 tons per cubic inch. That's because of the degenerate matter, where it's squeezed down and shaking all the electrons out. I want to make sure I didn't time the repeater. I'm just about down here. Procyon B's surface temperature is about 7740 Kelvin. It's much cooler than Sirius B, and that's because of its lesser mass and greater age. Procyon B was once bigger and hotter than Procyon A, perhaps maybe 2.1 solar masses, and therefore it's evolved faster, and it's manufactured lots of heavy elements which it pumped into space and under Procyon A before becoming a white dwarf. In fact, Procyon A really is rich in these so-called metals, which is everything heavier than hydrogen. It has about 1.4 times the sun's iron abundance. So, to sum things up, a recent search for faint companions using the Hubble Space Telescope found no evidence of any large Jupiter or brown dwarf-sized objects around Procyon A or B. However, dust has been detected. So that concludes Procyon A. And we'll have something for you next week. Back to net KG5P.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate that. Yeah, it's really cool to hear about different stars and their makeup. So thanks for bringing that interesting information. All right, next up is space launches for this week. So at this time, I'll turn the net over to Tom, KE5ICX, if you'll give us information about space launches.
This is Whiskey Bravo number 4, Mike Foxtrot India WB4MFI Ted Dallas Low Power.
Kilo 5 Alpha November Papa Allen in Dallas.
Kilo Golf 5
Juliet Delta Whiskey, John in Norman, Oklahoma on Echolink.
Kilo Bravo 0 Delta Bravo Juliet Jim South Grand Prairie.
Kilo Golf 5, Whiskey Victor Lima, James in Carrollton.
that, Tom. Thanks for the information. I know there's so much uncertainty right now. Thanks for bringing that information. And I did watch the return of that Soyuz capsule earlier this week, so that was really cool to watch on NASA TV. So this is a reminder, you can watch good programs on NASA TV, and whenever they do things live, if you follow their Facebook page, you'll get notification when they go live on stuff. So it's really cool to keep up with all that. Hi, this is KF5PDS, Billy, your net control for this section of the DARC Skynet. Next up is recent astronomical discoveries. So again, I'll turn the net back to Brenda at WB50ZL if you'll give us information about recent astronomical discoveries.
Thank you, Ellie. This is WB50ZL. The title here is Exoplanet Apparently Disappears in Latest Hubble Observations. Now you see it, now you don't. What astronomers thought was a planet beyond our solar system has now seemingly vanished from sight. So this happens in science fiction, such as Superman's home planet Krypton exploding. Astronomers are looking for a plausible explanation. One interpretation is that, rather than being a full-size planetary object, which was first photographed in 2004, it could instead be a vast, expanding cloud of dust produced in a collision between two large bodies orbiting the bright nearby star Fomalhaut. Potential follow-up observations might confirm this extraordinary conclusion. These collisions are exceedingly rare, and so this is a big deal that we actually get to see one, said Andres Gaspar of the University of Arizona, Tucson. We believe that we were at the right place at the right time to have witnessed such an unlikely event with NASA's Hubble Space Telescope. The Fomalhaut system is the ultimate test lab for all of our ideas about how exoplanets and star systems evolve, added George Reike of the University of Arizona Steward Observatory. We do have evidence of such collisions in other systems, but none of this magnitude has ever been observed in our solar system. This is a blueprint of how planets destroy each other. The object, called Fomalhaut B, was first announced in 2008 based on data taken in 2004 and 6. It was clearly visible in several years of Hubble observations that revealed it was a moving dot. Until then, evidence for exoplanets had mostly been inferred through indirect detection methods such as subtle back-and-forth stellar wobbles and shadows from planets passing in front of their stars. Unlike other directly imaged exoplanets, however, nagging puzzles arose with Fomalhaut B early on. The object was unusually bright in visible light, but did not have any detectable infrared heat signature. Astronomers conjectured that the added brightness came from a huge shell or ring of dust encircling the planet that may possibly have been collision-related. The orbit of Fomalhaut B also appeared unusual, possibly very eccentric. Our study, which analyzed all available archival Hubble data on Fomalhaut, reveals several characteristics that together paint a picture that the planet-sized object may never have existed in the first place, says Gaspar. The team emphasizes that the final nail in the coffin came when their data analysis of Hubble images taken in 2014 showed the object had vanished, to their disbelief. Adding to the mystery, earlier images showed the object to continuously fade over time. They say, clearly, Fomalhaut B was doing things a bona fide planet should not be doing, said Gaspar. The interpretation is that Fomalhaut B is slowly expanding from the smash-up that blasted a dissipating dust cloud into space. Taking into account all available data, Gaspar and Reike think the collision occurred not too long prior to the first observations taken in 2004. By now, the debris cloud, consisting of dust particles around 1 micron, is below Hubble's detection limit. The The dust cloud is estimated to have expanded by now to a size larger than the orbit of Earth around our sun. Equally confounding is that the team reports that the object is more likely on an escape path rather than on an elliptical orbit as expected for planets. This is based on the researchers adding later observations to the trajectory plots from earlier data. A recently created massive dust cloud experiencing considerable radioactive forces from the central star Fomalhaut would be placed on such a trajectory, said Gaspar. Our model is naturally able to explain all independent observable parameters of the system, its expansion rate, its fading, and its trajectory. Because Fomalhaut B is presently inside a vast ring of icy debris encircling the star, colliding bodies would likely be a mixture of ice and dust like the comets that exist in the Kuiper Belt on the outer fringe of our solar system. Gaspar and Reike estimate that each of these comet-like bodies measured about 125 miles across, or roughly half the size of the asteroid Vesta. All right, there's just a little bit left. I don't think it's that important, but you can go to ScienceDaily.com and see the original article if you like. Meanwhile, back to net, WB5OZL.
Thank you, Brenda. This is KFI's Billy, your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. All right, lastly, I will add, since we're getting close to the end of our net, about visible satellite passages. You can use the www.heavens-above.com. That's heavens above. www.heavens-above.com website to find out what's in orbit and where to look during flyovers. You can put in your GPS, latitude and longitude, or city and state information, and see all kinds of cool information about looking for, for the ISS, for instance, and other cool satellites and other objects. So check out heavensabove.com. All right, this time I'll turn the net over one more time to Tom and do a final check-in round, and then if you'll give me the final count, see if we can add on to our 27 check-in, and then we'll close the net. So this is KF5TDS to KE5ICX.
Kilo, Foxtrot 5, Tango, Sierra Kilo, Burl in Dallas.
All right, thank you very much, Tom. Copy that we have 29 hams participating on the air, so thanks to all who checked in this evening. We hope you'll join us here next week and every Saturday night at 9 p.m. to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration. On this net, the sky is never the limit. We're always looking for net control stations for this and all the other DARC nets. If you'd like to try your hand at this, contact any of the net controls by sending an email to nets@w5fc.org. You can follow topics and discussions about this net and astronomy in general on Facebook and Twitter, as well as our audio and video streams, video archives, and other useful sources by going to w5fc.org at the conclusion of this net. So until next Saturday night, this is KF5's PDS, Billy, and I'll be closing the net at 22:31 local time and returning the repeater to normal amateur use. 73, everyone, and enjoy the evening discovering the universe. And remember, coming up after this net is the Afterglow movie net. 73, everyone.
Thank you so much, Billy. It was awesome tonight. We had a question online on Skynet a little while ago. I think the call sign was KF5GUS. Are you still on air?
Well, hi there, Chaz. W5GUS here.
W5GUS. Well, I messed up the pro sign. Okay, well, anyway, I did some research already. Actually, the October 2017 discovery of this cave that's about 328 feet wide and about 31 miles long. That was discovered back in October 2017 by Japan's selenology. That's the science of studying the moon. Selenological Engineering Explorer probe. It is the one that discovered this underground cave. Okay, I messed up the name. Did that help you out?
Well, yeah, that does sound familiar. That does sound familiar. Thank you. I'll look into this a little bit more. I was just curious. I didn't realize it's been 3 years, but time flies. But I will check further on this and see if there's been any recent developments. I'm just curious. That would be a perfect spot for a lunar base.
Thank you, Tom. You told me the call sign W5GUS. Okay. Here's what I did. I searched recent discovery of moon cavern, and that's how I found it. It came up really quick on the search, so that might be where you might want to begin doing your research on that. Okay, this is KF5JHA. Afterglow is coming up in about 3 minutes. I'm going to be quiet.
Well, thank you very much, Chaz. I will look into this further, and maybe I will have an update for next week also. All right, thanks again. W5GUS will be clear. And anticipating Afterglow.
AI5 EGO signal test.
Are you looking for a report?
Affirmative. Brief one if possible.
Good. Pretty much full quieting.
Copy that. Thank you very much. KI5 EGO clear.
Alrighty. The BT9V.
November 5, Bravo, Bravo. Bill in Irving, I did see the movie.
This is Kilo Charlie 5, Mike, Papa Oscar, Jamie, Mobile, North Dallas.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike, Tony in Dallas. Very sadly, I did not see the movie, but I bet I'm going to be inspired to do so.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Tango Sierra Kilo, Burl in Dallas. I did see the movie.
Whiskey Tango 9 Volt, Michael in Plano. Yes, I saw the movie.
Kilo 5, Alpha, November, Echo, Kane in Richardson. Yes, I saw the movie.
Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima, Brendan DeSoto. Yes, I saw the movie.
Kilo India 5, Echo Golf Oscar, Dell on the highway on George Bush, and I've seen this movie about 5 times. Tom, I did not see the movie, KC5MPO.
This is Kilo Golf 5, Bravo Zulu Whiskey, J near Weatherford, and I saw the film.
This is KI5EGO, and yes, I am driving northbound on George Bush at the moment, so I may disappear. I've seen this film about 5 times. I was a huge fan of Philip K. Dick in high school, and read more of his material early in university. And I also read the book. I think I read the book, and then I saw the movie. But the plot is kind of weird, I think, because it doesn't always seem as though there's a very straight line to it. It's just sort of a series of events sometimes, of Bob Archer kind of witnessing his life happen, and various conversations that ensue in Bob Archer's life, which is, I think, very indicative of Richard Linklater's style, especially if anyone has ever seen Richard Linklater's first rotoscope film, which was Waking Life. But Philip K. Dick was a drug addict himself for many years, and of course later died in the early '80s, I believe, from complications due to drug use in his early life. So this is definitely one of Philip K. Dick's more autobiographical works, and definitely very cathartic for him as a person. At the end of the book, and I believe also at the end of the film, there is a list of friends of Philip K. Dick, personal friends, who died or otherwise had brain damage due to extreme drug abuse. And I'll just close with there's a really funny moment in Scanner Darkly, the film, where Bob Archer's walking around and he encounters this man screaming through a megaphone, and these men in black pull out in a van and drag him into the van. And that actor is actually, I can't remember his name now. Oh, it'll come to me. Alex Jones. That actor is actually the Alex Jones who's the InfoWars news guy. So that's all I have to say for the moment. I hope you got all that. This is KI5EGO.
Hi, Tom. Yeah, this is N5BB. I saw the film today. I had not seen it before. I missed it when it came out. And I had not read this particular Philip K. Dick story. I had read some of his older stories that he wrote back in the 60s and early 70s. But this story was written later in, 77 or something? Yeah, 77. And I did not read it originally back then. So let's see. We're talking about the movie in general, I guess, and the plot. Well, of course, just a few seconds about the movie in general. The rotoscope technique gives, of course, it a very surreal feeling, although by the time you get to the middle of the movie, you've become used to it, and it's just the way it is. But it's still a very weird feeling to go through the movie with that technique. plot is very interesting. It's got these two threads intertwined, of course. The drug use problem, well, multiple threads. The drug use problem in general, what it's doing to people. The government surveillance issues. And then in general, the difference between what is real and what is not real. And this kind of ties into both areas, both the government surveillance area, because the Hank is actually Donna. So, I mean, and of course, Fred is Bob. So there's all the reality and unreality just all through it, both on the drug thing, separating the two hemispheres of your brain and making it do weird things, and also on the surveillance of it, kind of making it hard to know what's real. So, very interesting. In fact, BB.
I have nothing to mention. I have never heard of him before. Had a passenger just dropped off. He said he read his book and thought it was very interesting, and he enjoyed it a lot.
Well, thank you, Tom. Yep, Aaron and I had kind of a miscommunication, and we ended up not setting aside time to watch the movie. So oops, but we're going to have to rewatch it soon. It sounds really interesting. She had seen it before ages ago, and she did like it. She found the style really striking, and she thought it was really fitting for Philip K. Dick, who always makes you question reality. She and I have a rule: no reading Philip K. Dick before bedtime. You know, you can read Philip K. Dick in the afternoon, but at this time of day, there's no Philip K. Dick reading. You know, for so many of his works, his language is awkward, and it really feels like it was written by a 12-year-old, but yet the awkwardness of his sentence structure just doesn't matter. He scares you, he confuses you, he makes you ask strange questions, he deprives you of sleep. So I really am looking forward to trying this. I know it's going to take more than one viewing because the plot sure does sound complicated, but really looking forward to it, and we both very strongly approve of Philip K. Dick. NT5TM.
This is KF5TSK. Well, most of the movie I spent trying to figure out what was the plot, where where is this going? The thing that bothered me most was these, scramble suits and so many things you didn't know. Is this a dream or is this reality? And, at the end of the film, I understood, exactly what was going on, but, throughout the film, it's like everyone kept changing from, animation back to real life and then back again. And, who owns what? Where are they? One of the things I thought about this whole movie was, gee, this would be a great film for someone who wants to be a psychologist. They can sit and watch this a few times and really make up their mind what they want to do in life. KF5TSK back from net.
I don't know. I thought I'd seen it. It vaguely rang a bell, and then as soon as I started watching it, I remembered that I had seen it long ago. I'm still not sure about the plot. I'm confused. I was confused the first time I saw it. I'm confused this time. It's just, I don't know. It was strange. I did have some thoughts I wrote down. So, in lieu of actual coherent comments about the plot, I shall mention, bugs. Fruit pies, not fruit flies, but fruit pies are for everyone, not just little old ladies, no matter what Brenda says. Someone stole the gears. How dastardly. Let's see. I hate that power mower, too. Always have, actually. And finally, I just was not nearly stoned enough to watch this movie. At one point, Burl, it was all animation. Some of it just looked more realistic than other bits, but it was all animated, sort of, or rotoscoped. But yeah, not nearly. I've never been that stoned, or drunk, or anything. Sorry, WT9V.
I have to say, I think they did an excellent job with this plot as far as trying to showcase what's really going on in Bob Archer's mind. That's really why it seems like it's this incoherent mess, and there's all these scenes that it's like, why did they show this huge scene with this bicycle that it doesn't end up meaning anything as to what actually happens at the end? It's because Bob Archer doesn't know what the story is. He's just seeing things go on and is just having his mind more and more fractured as time goes on, as these drugs, have him kind of go in and out in understanding and comprehending of what's going on. I do have to say that the plot twist definitely hit me pretty quickly, and I was suddenly trying to figure out what all was really going on. I forget Winona Ryder's character's name, but it suddenly made me realize, like, oh, that's the reason why she didn't seem as genuine of a character in the show in the earlier parts, and she just kind of seemed like she was always, she was there, but she wasn't really always that interested in what was going on. And then it's like, oh, well, actually, that's why. So at first I was actually faulting Winona Ryder for her performance in it, and then I realized, no, actually, that's how she should have been playing that role. So I guess that goes on to characterization. I'll leave that for later. I actually haven't read too many Philip K. Dick books, but this definitely makes me want to go see it or read more of his works. And this is a movie that I've seen clips of and things like that, and kind of knew it existed, but I never actually pushed myself to go watch it. And so, once again, this is part of the reason why I love being a part of this net, is it gives me an excuse. Hey, I'm going to go watch this movie tonight. This is K5A&E, back to net control.
This is WB50ZL. Well, I struggled quite a bit to understand it. Read about it on Wikipedia. Kind of a basic understanding of what went on, but there's just too much randomness there. They're going along and then something just off the wall happens. But I think that's part of its charm. The craziness of it, things don't make sense. Sort of an down the rabbit hole kind of thing of things that jolt you and just kind of pull you off your feet all of a sudden. It had all these actors that I love to watch normally, really good actors. A couple of main ones worked for Scale. This thing lost money. But, it had a lot of heart put into it. These people obviously cared about this project. And, I'm kind of wondering why. It's like, what exactly is the message here? I'm not sure I know. And even though the characters were interesting and watchable, there's not anybody in there I would want as a friend. I would not want to be in this movie. Think about the movies you've seen where it's like, I wish I could go and be in that movie and be friends with them and do what they do. And there's none of that here at all. It's all, prickly situations and things I wouldn't want to be part of. But on the other hand, there's a lot of craziness in the world, and you look at this and go, this is kind of an accurate portrayal of a lot of people and a lot of situations. And I think that's to its credit. All right, back to net, WB5OZL.
KG5BZW. Okay, plot. Well, it's hard. Okay, so basically, I think you can divide it into two parts. Although they're kind of intertwined, and that's kind of what kind of makes it interesting. I feel like it won't be echoing a lot of what others have said. But I'm going to summarize it as a slow-motion train wreck. And it's not really, the plot, it really is not a metaphor for how good or bad it is. That's just what the plot is. It's, you kind of, you're seeing how all of these characters factor, which would be interesting. Anyway, distracting myself here. So, there's, I don't know, there's just, it's an interesting film. I like what Britta says, is that there's a lot of craziness to this, but yet it almost seems like a reflection of some of the craziness of the story that is in the world, and so it's almost educational. I don't know, of course, you know, whether it at least gives you some, wouldn't call it, maybe not educational, maybe that's not the right word, just a way to kind of look into people's eyes that have brains that aren't, well, they're not functioning for one reason or another. In this case, they're all they're A, acting like things are going bad, or B, they really are, you know, taking, you know, this D drug that just kind of just make things kind of loopy. The whole, it's kind of funny, the whole talk between the folks. They kind of almost conspiratorial thinking. But because it's like I don't really hate the film. I don't particularly like it. It's very interesting. I'd say it's worth a viewing or two or three. I'll probably watch it again. Yeah, I watched it on Voodoo, which had ads and kind of, I had to reset myself every single time an ad came on, and it's like, oh boy. And on topic of resets, let me reset right now. Okay. There are other things I think I want to comment on this film, like, you know, just how real some of this is. Obviously, the magic suit, well, that's just the magic thing. It kind of helps a magic thing that it kind of helps the plot forward. There are ways, or even if you are not truly anonymized data, there are statistics that give data away. I mean, you need more than a scramble suit, name scrambler or whatever scrambler to, if we're looking at U.S. Census statistics, they really have to add noise to the data to make sure that, people aren't identified by their responses or whatnot. So, a person wearing such a suit would actually have to literally act different, use different choices of words in different contexts and whatever. That's a little bit hard. So, even the fact that the suit is itself magical can't really exist. There's other aspects which, I have issue with. But, yeah, besides the point, I'm going to go ahead and I think it makes for an interesting story regardless. But anyway, I think I've kind of rambled on too long. So, KG5 BCW, back to that.
This is Kilo Golf 5 Papa Mike November. James up here just outside of Walters, Oklahoma, 3 miles east. I did not see the movie, and I'll be just listening tonight. Back to the net, KG5 BMN.
N5BB, just a general comment for the people that didn't understand the movie. Well, this is N5BB. Well, that's the whole idea. If you understood the plot completely, that wasn't Philip K. Dick's concept of the whole story. The story again is the uncertainty with what you think reality is and what other people think reality is, and maybe there is a real reality. It's really a kind of a philosophical thing. And then again, how drugs, this particular drug, made it even worse, and how government surveillance and things. I mean, just look at the news. There's more than one reality that people in the U.S. believe right now on major topics. So I think Philip K. Dick was really describing our current situation and a lot of what he wrote there. N5BB.
This is KI5EGO. I'm a pretty far distance away. How well can you hear me? Okay, well, I just wanted to check. Characterization. Well, it's interesting because, Barris is so weird in this film. I mean, a lot of the characters are weird. Woody Harrelson plays kind of a hound dog kind of a character. Hound dog is not the right word. Floppy-eared dog is what I was going for. Kind of a character with long hair, and Barris and Lockman like to mess around with Charles Freck. They like to mess with Charles Freck, who is suffering from extreme paranoid delusions by this point that we meet him at the beginning of the film. In fact, the opening scene of the film is Charles Freck suffering from a very intense visual form of the DTs, where you're sort of coming off of a drug and you feel like there are bugs crawling all around you, and he can actually see them. And so he calls Barris, and Barris, who's most likely his supplier, is really just kind of screwing with him. And later, Freck shows up, and there's that scene with the hammer where they dance around each other, and then Luckman and Barris go at it. But I think that Robert Downey Jr. did a fantastic job of playing the character of Barris. I mean, all of the actors did a fantastic job. There's not really a scene where there's any flat acting, I think, from any of the characters. Even Bob Archer, who is, played by Keanu Reeves, who is kind of in the midst of being strung out and very tired and very bored with the situation. He is even that is still very well acted by Keanu Reeves. I just want to say, because I might not be able to stay long, that I remembered in listening in the course of this film, and I know this is a bit off topic, and I don't know if you'll mention music in the future, but I've actually met the composer, the man who wrote the music to this film. I met him in university while studying music at SMU, and he came and did a talk, and I got a chance to actually ask him about what it was like working with Linklater and what it was like to write the music for this film. And I'm a huge fan of the music, which I think adds a lot to the plot, and is almost a bit of a character itself, because the music is a bit of a character itself in the film, in that it follows along all of the actions and all of the weirdness that we see. Barris turning into a cockroach. The bugs at the beginning of the film are accompanied by, a sort of weird string and buzzy and electronic noise that kind of mimics their activity. So I just wanted to mention that. I can't remember the composer's name, unfortunately, off the top of my head. Anyway, back to net control. This is KI5EGO.
this is N5BB. Well, I agree. I thought the acting was very good, although at sometimes in the movie you'd really like to see the real images rather than the rotoscope versions, because it looked like Robert Downey Jr. You'd like to see his face carefully. You can see his arm movements and the weird way he moves his body, but his face is kind of you can't see it well enough. Let's put it that way. Anyway, characterization. Well, I think I haven't read the book, but I think they did a great job. I think the actors did a great job. And the protagonist is confused. That's the whole point about what's what, because he's confused about whether he is Fred or he is Bob. Is he the guy that works for the San Diego Police Department, or is he the guy taking drugs with his buddies in the house? And at some point near closer to the end of the movie, he gets very confused about that. You can tell he's looking at it. He's looking at what he sees as other people recorded, but it's him. Another thing that heightens all that, of course, is the camouflage special suits they wear, and that was nearly another character in the movie because they did it so well. I mean, it's hard to describe. It's very difficult for me to describe what that suit is, but they did it justice. It makes it look like it's multiple people changing all the time. And I think Philip K. Dick, I think I read that he wrote that it went through 1 billion characters and then it rolled around to the creator temporarily. And supposedly one of those creators, one of those images that you see in there is of Philip K. Dick himself in the movie. But that adds more to the characterization because it hides their voices and other things more than just their physical appearance. So you don't learn that Hank is dying until very near the end. It isn't obvious. It's a total surprise to me. That was the most surprising thing in the whole movie. Was I started to suspect a little bit because of some of the actions that Hank was doing, saying that Donna, he was calling Donna, and Donna was going to come and pick Fred / Bob up. But then when he goes in there and removes the suit, and there's Donna, I was still surprised. I mean, I suspected it a little bit, but I was really surprised. So I think they did a great job doing that in that part of the characterization. Again, the people in the house were all great. I think they all acted their part. I think what was really interesting was how the characters came out when the car was disabled, and there's some uncertainty on how that happened. I think it was a Robert Downey Jr. character who seems to be much more devious and crazy than it initially appeared. The police suspected that also, that they needed to watch him carefully. But he seemed to say he had the tools to fix the problem back at the house. So it's kind of likely that he actually made the problem. Maybe he modified the car. But at the same time, it also appears maybe that the car was fixed so that Donna could go and fix the house. Because remember, when they got back, she was already in the house, but the cameras were in the house. So anyway, very, weird question there about those characters. That's plot/characters. I guess that's the end of the characterization. One other related comment, because I'm not sure if we'll get to it, but this was filmed in Austin. The house itself, there were other scenes of the highways in San Diego, but the house itself was in Austin, in southeast Austin. It's near St. Elmo Road and I-35. It's over southeast Austin. I've been in that area many times before. I've never driven on this particular street. It's a circle. But I've driven on the adjacent street, so I know where this is. Inside BB.
Well, Tom, I'm a little bit intimidated. I think this is the kind of thing I might have to, I don't know, keep some notes handy when I watch it. Read the Wikipedia article more than once. But I'm still very intrigued. Erin points out that she has the book, so maybe I have to read the book first. It definitely seems like it's going to require some preparation, or I will just not be able to follow it. NT5TM.
This is KF5TSK. Well, I enjoyed all the characters. I felt they, really played their part. One of the things I thought was interesting was I remember the movie Training Day, and the narcotics captain told the new rookie that, you have to take drugs to, know what you're looking for to, arrest people. And it was like Fred was, he really didn't get that message. It was like, at the end of the movie, it was like, we wanted you to, bait these people in, but, we didn't really want you to take any drugs. And, Fred was like, I really couldn't hide it. And, he didn't seem to be a law enforcement, even though he got paid, but he looked like more of an informant. He's just, you to go out and I guess, get to know these people and find out what they have. Made me think of, it's a big game with the government that we don't want to totally close everything down because then we won't have a job. So, things have to, it's like we'll just coexist. We'll allow some drugs to exist so that we'll still have a job. One of the things that I thought about in the movie was, in Blade Runner, every time he went in, it was like, you have to do the psychological, evaluation. And, Fred just didn't seem like he knew, why am I going through this? He didn't understand what was actually there. Overall, I said everyone played their part, and they were quite convincing. K5TSK back to net.
Since you said please, I will say that I had some great character notes that some mysterious people snuck in and stole them and left all these pinhole cameras all over the house. So I'm just going to have to kind of wing it. And I don't have a whole lot to wing, honestly. I'm kind of lost. I'm still lost. I don't actually have a whole lot to add about this, but I'm sure Kane will have all sorts of intelligent and informative things to say. WT9V.
Overall, this movie, it really wasn't like as it was stated earlier. It's not necessarily a movie about like the plot and the story that happens, but more of the people along the way and their interactions and trying to make you think about these concepts of identity and reality. And overall, all of these characters just have this entirely jumbled up, messed up kind of sense of reality, other than Winona Ryder's character, who actually is the only one that kind of knows what's really happening here. In the end, I kind of wish that we had a little bit more out of Woody Harrelson's character. I don't really know exactly what I would want out of that character, but he just didn't quite seem as fully believable to me. I don't know if that was just Woody Harrelson's acting or what, but compared to like Keanu Reeves' character and that performance and Winona Ryder's performance and especially Robert Downey Jr. and his character, it just kind of seemed like Woody Harrelson's character was kind of more along for the ride. But hey, in the end, excellent production, and all of them played their characters incredibly well, and the doctors are actually a very interesting and critical part. I'll go ahead and reset here. it's interesting when you catch to the end of it and you see just how much of an important role that these conversations that the doctors had with Keanu Reeves' character, Arctur, how much that they set up his mind, essentially, at the very end. And so the doctors are the ones that actually kind of know what's going on inside Keanu Reeves' mind and kind of know where to place these thoughts, which turn out to be very important at the very end. In the end, that's it for me. This is K5ANE, back to net control.
This is WB5OZL. Well, they were certainly interesting characters. You can't say, well, this is formulaic or just like those other characters. And I think maybe that's one thing that appeals to us is they were all really different kind of people than what we normally deal with. This is outside of the range of anything I've ever experienced. The actors were just dead on. They were so good, but they're really good actors. And I kind of get the sense that maybe they were having fun with it, but who knows? The story is so bizarre that you really need strange characters to move it along. That's all I have for now. I may have some more later. WB5OZL.
Q5BZW, recheck.
Whiskey 5 Echo Bravo Bravo, and yeah, I saw it.
This is KQ5BZW. One thing I will say about the characters is I kind of felt like the actors were playing like a super modified version of themselves. I mean, certainly with Woody Harrelson, I mean, it kind of fits. Well, he just fits a stereotype that he really does. I was trying to you can see some of the nature of oh shoot, I'm having a brain fart. Rodney Downey Jr.'s. I wish I could remember some of his other films. Iron Man is such a big influence on how I see him now. But still, I mean, there's that kind of the confidence. This is obviously prior to Iron Man, but the confidence over the, pseudo-intellectual, whatever. More pseudo-intellectual here. I don't want to be too. I almost feel like I'm being mean by saying that because I'm not really trying to say anything bad about Robert Downey Jr. or anything here. I was wanting to learn a little bit more about his actual drug use, which may have influenced the film, but I didn't get to read that before talking. And of course, Keanu, well, he played his normal kind of stoic self. So it's almost, oddly enough, it's like the movie was made for them. So I think that the movie selected. So yes, I think the acting was great, but it's almost like the roles were made for him. So I don't want to, take too much from their performance and say it's just an automatic result. No, they had to make effort, and they did make effort, but still, and honestly, I'd say, oh shoot, I'm getting Winona confused with Ashley. Sorry. She was probably she acted good as well. I don't know that she fits the stereotype or not. I don't have anything in mind. And that's honestly all I've got right now as far as characters go. So, it's a fine film. KG5BCW.
All right, thanks, Tom. Time to make up for lost time here. So yeah, the plot, yeah, it is quirky. It's very confused, but we're basically the observers, watching this mayhem, and there are various narratives that each of the characters concocts, and in many ways they seem somewhat logical, but it's the presentation, the frenetic, drug-induced frenzy that makes them sound crazy. But like in the case of the car, for example, that was actually a fairly logical explanation for what went wrong on the highway. But it's just the presentation, and they're just hyperactive and come across as being nuts. And certainly there's some brain degradation, and the real narrative or the reality of what's really going on in the story is far more, I guess, what would be considered delusional. The reality is more delusional than the paranoid delusions that any of the characters had. That the people who are trying to treat the patients are actually the ones behind the drug production. But I guess what would be interesting after, if there were a sequel to this or some epilogue, it would be, okay, so he's got a flower, now what? Would anything really change? Probably not. So what's the point of using him as a sacrificial lamb, So, that's kind of where the story, it has no resolution. But anyway, that's uplifting, isn't it? W5EBB.
W5BB.
WB50ZL.
W5EBB.
Yes, this is N5BB. There was an electronic instrument that looked like an old Heath hit signal generator or sweeps generator. I couldn't see well to tell exactly what it was with the rotoscoping, but it was sitting in the room on a table in the room next to the kitchen. So in that other room, when you saw the kitchen in the distance, this thing was on a table there, and next to kind of a wall. I don't know what that was, but I thought that was interesting. Oh man, what was the other thing I was going to say? I had it ready to go in my brain, and I thought as far as special effects, when the guy that was super paranoid, when he tried to commit suicide by taking all those drinks with the wine, I thought the general special effects there with the alien that came in that started reading every single damn thing he's done in his life since a baby. I think that was very funny. I thought that was incredibly funny, and I think it was very well done. Your idea of hell would be some creature coming in, whether it's some godlike creature or some alien creature, with this big long list of everything you've done wrong in your life. Oh boy, what a delusion. N5BB.
W5FC.
This is WB50ZL. Yeah, I'm glad Bill brought that up. That alien was hysterical. Of all of the things that we imagine the afterlife to be, having some creepy alien drone on about all of our minor sins all our lives, that is truly an eternal punishment. What I want to say is I think, to me, one of the most important scenes in the movie is when he picks the flower and hides it in the boot. And you realize just how simple he's become. He's like a child. He just repeats things. His mind is truly gone. But to me, that just exemplifies everything that's something a small child might do. And to me, that's just that was just a very powerful scene to me. Back to net, WB50ZL.
The bike had 18 speeds. not 6 times, or not 6 plus 3, as Woody Harrelson thought, but 6 times 3. And that whole series of narratives and the extrapolations of the story about what happened to the other speeds, was just an indication of the silliness that ensues when you start with a wrong assumption and then you just let your mind fly with assumptions and extrapolations, and that was kind of encapsulated the whole misthinking of many of the characters in the movie, but it was also a very funny scene. So who is behind all this evil? I mean, that's what Fred ponders, or who or what is scanning us, whether clearly or darkly. Fred believes it's not human. He says that when he's thinking about this. Is it the albino shape-shifting lizards responsible for stealing the gears? Albino shape-shifting lizards. Robert Downey would think so, and David Icke in real life asserts they're the ones behind it. Or is it the globalists? That's what Alex Jones would contend. They're the ones behind all this evil. Is it God? Is it Satan? Or is it just us? Now, I only recently discovered Richard Linklater, and there's something to like in all of his movies, even the Bad News Bears remake. He is an auteur, and he is so diverse in the style and tone of his movies, but all of them have something to say, not in a preachy way, about society, about politics, about everyday life, about interpersonal relationships. He's a sage, and his observations about society are incisive. As I said, it's not in-your-face preachy, but it's the whole movie in its entirety that defines the moral, the message that he intends to get across. And he does it under the radar in a lot of ways, in a very effective way. So some of his movies, if you haven't seen them, Before Sunrise, Before Sunset, Slacker, of course, from 1990, Bad News Bears from 2005, again, kind of a microcosm of society. Bernie, 2011, and Last Flying Flag, 2017. Very good. W5EBB.
David, thanks for mentioning again the number of gears on the bicycle. I was rolling over laughing, listening to them arguing about whether there were 18 gears or 6 plus something. Oh, man, they don't know how it works. That was so funny. N5BB.
W5FC.
Yeah, and he was eager to get back and save those orphaned gears, too.
Yeah, and he was saying he was going to sell the bicycle at some weird price. What was it, $23.55 or some other $23.75? He came with some weird cheaper price because of the lack of the number of gears. And of course, then you hear from Donna that it was evidently a stolen bike. Good night, N5BB.
Well, of course, I got out the calculator, and the price per gear was not $23.75. It was actually $22.222 repeating. Hey, I don't know if you stayed on last week, but I mentioned Mezzalunas in Austin. Now, when I lived there, it was on Colorado Street, downtown. Did you ever eat there? I went there quite a bit. Really good Italian food. Did you ever go there? W5EBB.
No, I'm pretty sure I did not. I moved away from Austin in 1987. So there's lots of things that have appeared down there after that time that have come and go that I'm not familiar with. But before 1987, there's a reasonable chance I would have experienced it. But of course, not 100%. N5BB.
Well, I'm pretty sure there's a high-rise condominium, tower that's that's built on top of what used to be there for that particular place. That was prime property, and I haven't been back to Austin in about 8 years, so I probably wouldn't know my way around downtown anymore. But I'll get back there one of these days. Good net, good comments. I will talk to you all again soon. W5EBB.
Did you ever eat at one of the two Threadgills?
Oh yeah, and Baby Acapulco's, oh yeah, the Austin originals, you have to, Trudy's, I think that was my favorite Mexican restaurant over there on the north side. But yeah, there were so many original restaurants, you couldn't, you